So mobile web is a conversation that we've all been having independently with our own platforms and things that we've been working on. To give a little background, over at GSN Games, mobile web became something of a necessity for our business because it is, tournaments with cash prizing, which wasn't always allowed in the app stores. So as a necessity, we needed to find a way to bring our audience into the mobile execution. And we started developing products for mobile web. And it started raising questions in my experience of, who else is doing this? What is your experience with mobile web? What has HTML5 been doing for you? Is it something that's streamlined and readily available? You're able to build it once, it's available across all browsers. But there's also challenges that go with that too. So we're gonna dive into those today. We're gonna talk a little bit about technology. We're gonna talk about discoverability, and then we're gonna talk about engagement as well that's happening on mobile web in HTML5. We'll try to answer one question after each of these topics, just to keep us on course, and then at the end, we'll take larger questions if there's still some out in the room. But let me introduce our great panelists that are here today. Sitting right next to me, we have Alexander Krug with Soft Games. He is the CEO. He used to be with Yahoo Games in Germany. He might be a little hungover still after the win, but we'll try to keep him awake with us today. But he rebuilt their entire gaming platform for Yahoo, has worked with many startups, and is a big advocate for HTML5. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So as I said, Alexander Krug, my name, CEO and founder of Soft Games. More than 10 years in the industry right now, and since almost 2009, like a very big supporter for HTML5. That's why Soft Games today is the world's largest HTML5 games platform. We have more than 250 games connected, and counting like around 10 million unique users every month on the platform. What we do for publishers or traffic partners, we provide them high quality HTML5 games to engage and monetize their audience. And on the other side, we help developers with sponsorships and distribution on a global scale through our own portals or our network.
Next up is Amy Meehan. She is the AVP at Gamehouse. She oversees all of their mobile publishing, and is also very fluent with user lifecycle, everything from acquisition to retention to conversion, and content acquisition. So Amy, tell us a little more about Gamehouse.
Well, besides offering free Wi-Fi for the conference, which is very important, Gamehouse is a developer, publisher, and distributor of casual games for mobile, social, and desktop platforms. We publish our own IP. Those would be titles like Collapse or Text Twist or our Delicious Emily's franchise. And then on the social casino side, we have titles like Gamehouse, Casino Plus. And most recently, we acquired Slingo about a year ago. And so we announced at the show that we will be launching, coming soon, Slingo Adventure. It'll be the next iteration in that franchise. And that'll be for mobile social platforms. And we also work with third parties to publish mobile titles as well as distribute on our direct-to-consumer sites like Gamehouse, Xylem, and Attractiva.
Ron Powers needs no introduction. He is a man about the scene. He is the Senior VP of Business Development over at Arcadium. You probably recognize him from his PopCap days, also his Gamehouse days. Very well known here in the industry. Ron, why don't you give some more anecdotes about yourself?
Well, I'm not here to talk about myself, although I do know who to bitch about not being able to download my files now. At Arcadium, we basically have two primary businesses. We have a white label service that powers game channels for major media companies. And the second business is building apps for mobile platforms. Our big challenge right now is how do we take our 10 million users on the web and convert them into something meaningful on mobile? And that's where I come into this. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not a technology expert, so I'm mostly focused on the business models.
Great. And last but not least is Ngozi Watts. He is the VP of Worldwide Gambling over at Unity. He has a resume that scared the crap out of me. This man is a seasoned attorney, a great business strategist, has done a ton of M&A, and built up many startups. Ngozi, why don't you tell us a little more about what you're working on with Unity these days?
That's a very kind and probably overstated introduction. However, that said, I'm at Unity. Many of you probably know Unity is a middleware game engine software, but in this community, very big in video gaming. That's a core of our business. But also social casino, and more specifically, I look after our gambling business, which means real money gambling worldwide. At Unity, our mantra is author once, deploy everywhere. So cross-platform is a key to our business. And I'll speak a little bit to gambling because this community appears to be far more focused on social casino than it had been, call it 3-4 years ago. Gambling specifically has fully embraced HTML5. So we at Unity are specifically focused on HTML5, both WebGL and Canvas 2D. And some of what we'll talk about here, and in fact, I mean, maybe it makes sense to kind of just set the table for the technology piece.
If you want to just transition right in,
I think
go
we'll
ahead.
go right in.
So our first challenge we were going to talk about is technology. We'll
And so
give it
one
to
of the
Gozi.
issues on the technology front that we've been talking about is some of you may or may not know, but Apple has been kind of the holdout on the mobile browser front. So they have now, right after the Worldwide Developers Conference, announced that they've enabled WebGL on mobile browsers. What that means is, so now that rich experience, 3D experience you have on a desktop, now can potentially be found on tablets and all other mobile devices. So that creates an opportunity. And so maybe that's where we'll sort of transition into the technology and what challenges and opportunities it provides.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like a great news that like 3D will be possible now in the browser, I would say. But I want to put out that HTML5 currently is mostly about 2D. So I'm also fighting to convince people not to make it too complex right now. Go more for the casual games, which are 2D. So pretty easy games, but at the end of the day, addictive games. At the end of it. So.
Real quick, how many of you are developers and developers? Marketing? I'm marketing. I'll raise my hand. Business teams? All right, so we got a good mix of things that are going on. For the developers, I mean, what are you guys looking to hear from a tech question? No? You've got to figure it out? All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about 2D versus 3D that's now available out in the marketplace, how that makes it a richer experience, and hopefully can bring more people into mobile web as well, since that is catching up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, you know, we started like building the HTML5 platform like 3 years ago, coming from freemium, now doing just casual games with ads basis, ads business, I'd say actually. What we saw over the last 3 years is like the quality of the content from the technology side and also from the challenges have been at the very first beginning. They are now more or less solved at the end of the day. Like we have like games which are supporting sound, which was a big issue for HTML5. Games are getting richer when it comes to graphics, so you can do a lot more in HTML5 as a lot of people might think about, and I think this is something which everybody should know basically.
But Alex, you're limited to 2D, correct? Like,
yeah, but basically, I would say at the beginning, like casual games, like the web was always about casual games, so that. I would say so far it was not a big challenge to just do 3D games. I mean, like it's a good step definitely to really bring HTML5 into, let's say, making the next step for HTML5 to make it really comparable to high-end 3D apps. But at the day, I would say it's a good step. It's great, but it's probably not necessary right now because like devices are limited anyway. So until all the devices will be able to play or to advantage like the 3D thing, it will take a while anyway. So.
Amy, what's the mix of your games between 2D and 3D?
Well, for mobile, is this turned on? Can you guys hear me? You gave me the wrong mic. Thanks. So our mobile web experience today, we partner. And we have a platform that is a combination of HTML5 playables, probably largely 2D, and then a collection of our apps in the App Store that we promote and drive traffic to. So I think, you know, the idea that Apple is going to support OpenGL and that we all have richer in-browser experiences and better games, that can only help us, right? As our customer base moves from desktop to mobile web, and specifically kind of tablet, right? They have an expectation that the experience that they have on desktop is just gonna lend itself on tablet. And so I would say currently that experience is not where it needs to be for our customers, and that's our challenge over the coming months, is to launch a more compelling content experience, and ultimately hopefully gets us to a point where we won't exactly have content parity. We have over 3,000 games on our site. We're not expecting to have that, but we're hoping to have an experience that, especially for our subscribers who are paying us a monthly fee for access to this content, that those benefits from the subscription that they have on desktop eventually makes its way to a tablet experience.
I think that's a great segue for us to kind of move into the next topic that we all wanted to talk about, which is discoverability and acquisition available on mobile web and the challenges that go around that. A quick stat from Google Think Insights: search is the most common starting point on mobile web. 48% of users start on search engines to find what they're looking for. 33% start on a branded website. So obviously, I mean, there's advantages of the App Store with the discoverability and the navigation that they have. They highlight content. But based on that strategy, and Amy, I know you guys at Gamehouse have seen some windfall from this search element. How is that benefiting or hurting you guys?
Yeah. So I would say, in addition to our direct-to-consumer sites of Gamehouse, Silent, and Attractiva, we actually own Mahjong.com and Sudoku.com. And with respect to, for Sudoku, for example, I think we rank number 2 in the keyword Sudoku. So over 50% of our traffic on those 2 domains are from mobile web. And so those are clearly customers or users who are typing in keywords that make sense for that domain, right? Mahjong games, Sudoku games. And so what we've seen there is we've seen solid month-over-month traffic growth. We've seen repeat visitors, because what's happening on those sites are very simple, easy-to-use experiences where they have basic Sudoku and Mahjong puzzles, and they solve them. There's not a lot of distraction and noise. It's a very simple UI, and it lends itself well to the device. And so we've seen some really great things happening there. I think the next step for us is to continue to build that audience and ultimately figure out ways to monetize, because I think kind of at the end of the day, that's what we're struggling with, is that balance, because it's clear that in many ways that the App Store has won, right? 80% of people play games in the app, are using the App Store, and that's where we're driving significant revenue. What we're trying to figure out with mobile web is to create compelling experiences that people want to go ahead and use their devices to play games in browser, and then figure out ways that make sense to monetize. And that can be through Alexander's model of advertising, potentially in-app purchases or microtransactions. But for now, we're really trying to focus on growing the audience and having a good experience.
I was trying to put it out that the good thing with HTML5 basically is that you have the possibilities, to offer like advertisement business, in-app purchase, and all these different things, with basically, when you're doing the apps business, you're more or less you're open as well to have this kind of stuff. But when you do have a very, say, dominant subscriber base, you can go cross-platform in this way and keep the users you have on the gamehouse.com, for example.
Share the user base.
Yeah.
The different experiences. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's where this is on, actually. Just wanted to prove that. You have to talk louder. Sitting here and listening to this, these are at least our 2 companies, are companies that have spent the last decade building up a user base on the web, right? I mean, you guys represent about 10 million. We've got about 10 million. User acquisition has got to be the most challenging thing that any of us as developers face. So how in the hell are we going to get those users over to the web? I don't care whether it's the App Store or, over to mobile, whether it's the App Store or mobile web. That's the challenge that we're looking at. And I don't care about WebGL or HTML5. I care about how do I get users over there, have an experience that they can be engaged with, and then I'll figure out a way to make money from it, whether, again, it's Alex's model of advertising or our model with advertising, or we're going to introduce microtransactions via that experience. When we think about our users, and again, this is a very selfish perspective, but these casual users are still 45-year-old women that do not understand for 1 minute why they can't play Sudoku on their desktop and have that same experience in the web. And the other thing, or excuse me, mobile web. The other thing that comes into play, and something that slapped us in the face about a year ago, is just the whole responsive design. You know, we were looking at this morning, Cindy, that we totally missed that. We were focusing on building the game experience and bringing the game over to mobile web, and we completely forgot about the user experience. And that's I can't emphasize how important that is, to be able to right-size that experience, not just the game, but the introduction to the game from the get-go. Otherwise, the detachment is enormous. So how do we fix that?
You think about the user flow, and then you build that into your experience.
Sounds like Cooper gave you a slide.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, there's actually a lot of things in common with some of the panelists here. You know, GSN as a business, Game House, Arcadian, we all have very established PC-based audiences. So I think with the mobile web strategy for us too, we're seeing a benefit of being able to extend, you know, our PC audience, retain them, not lose them to mobile by having mobile web content. You know, Ron made a good point too, that these are not the savviest of users. They are an older demographic, and they want to treat their tablet and their phone the same way that they treat their regular experience and what they see content for. So when they go in, they're going to type the website, and they want to find their website, and they want to find their favorite games. I think we're slowly getting there, but we have as a default, I think, as an industry, been designing for the App Store because that's what we were told we should do. That's where all of the other games are. But it's a very cluttered storefront now. So how do you stand out? Is mobile web that platform for you to maybe be a first served customer, to have your content there before anyone else does? Is it cheaper acquisition, possibly? You're not spending against, you know, big fish and the big social casinos and, you know, Clash of Titans that have huge budgets to be able to pull these ads in the App Store. You know, mobile web is a more open marketplace to try to actually get in this acquisition. So, you know, based on that, we talked a little bit too this morning, you know, maybe there's some oversight. People aren't building SEO into their mobile web pages. You know, not to talk so much just about the GSN experience, but we have HTML5 content out there. You know, and shame on us, we have Wheel of Fortune. It's a great game. You can play that as a mobile web title. And when you search Wheel of Fortune, it's not even in the Google search results. Our other Wheel of Fortune executions are, you can play the non-optimized mobile web version, thanks to Google, but there could probably be more SEO that's built into these products as well to help out the discoverability and acquisition. Some other things we kind of wanted to talk about looking at the notes is, you know, cross-promotion. You know, is mobile web, you know, maybe a way for you to serve other content or, you know, help people discover larger experiences that you have?
Yeah, so this is something that Alexander and I have actually talked a little bit about in terms of, you know, what are you using your mobile website for? And so, like I referred to earlier, Gamehouse today is using mobile web to have customers play in browser HTML5 games, and then also highlight our titles that are in the App Store. And we could, you know, the evidence so far from what we see in terms of when we look at the attribution of installs of our apps in the App Store, you know, the lion's share of the installs are coming obviously from organic search within the App Store itself, as well as paid UA that we're doing specifically to drive traffic and installs for the applications. We do highlight and feature games on our mobile web for the App Store, and when we look at the attribution, it's not a big driver of installs, direct attribution, right? We can't really measure if there's a halo effect there, if people are remembering, oh, that's right, Delicious Emily's Honeymoon Cruise that I played on Gamehouse on the desktop, I saw it on their mobile website and I'm gonna go to the App Store later and get it. Like, we can't measure that. And so Alexander was talking to me earlier about why would you send that customer to the App Store? What is the benefit of that? Well, you're not giving them a reason to come back to your mobile web experience. You're driving them off.
You're losing 30%
and you're right. And correct. And I think it's a good question. I would say we're going to continue to test mobile web as an acquisition channel for installs. We have to do that. one, if it's a viable channel and it lowers the cost of acquisition, that's always a good thing. And two, we want to promote our IP, right? We want to promote the fact that we have this a particular title on multiple platforms. And so we want our customers to realize, hey, you can play this game on desktop, on tablet, and there's also a mobile native app version available. So for us, it's I think it would be. I don't think it would be a great customer experience not to let them know that those games are available in the App Store.
Right, and I think you probably have some opinions on this as well, Alexander, but a quick stat too, so Magic Studies, we work with them, did a survey of, do you prefer to play games on tablet, on the mobile web, or in an app? And not surprisingly, 58% of users said that they prefer to play it in an app, but there was two other choices, and that was mobile web or no preference, and combined, that's 42%. That's a huge opportunity of people that really don't care where they're playing as long as they can play their favorite content and their favorite games. And I think, again, there's some oversight by us just defaulting to an app store system, but it could be that, that's our best scenario right now because that's where the technology is and you already have existing products. So, how do you fight that?
Yeah, I know. You already mentioned it. My main question always when I'm talking to portals is like, okay, hey, why you're not building in a mobile optimized version and just providing the content you already have on the Flash side or on the desktop side to your users? Because the users who are actually accessing your portal, they're expecting to play immediately a game. They're not looking forward to being forwarded to another portal and entering like an ID or a password and wait again for getting the game loaded and all this stuff. And that's a good thing with HTML5. People are not, they are not forced to enter any IDs or passwords or whatever. They can just start immediately playing, and they're still connected to your brand. They're still connected to your portal. And this is what you did over the last 10, 15, 20 years or whatever, just to build up your own brand. And just bringing the users to the App Store and say, hey, it was nice, please keep our brand in mind, but hey, if you don't like it, then you have like 500 million other apps here. So you lose the user at the end of the day. For sure, they expect as well that they can find your brands and apps in the App Store as well. But I always say, okay, hey, it makes more sense to probably invest a bit more time and money in making, let's say, HTML5 version of your existing brands, and then providing the users what they expect, what they're desired to do over the last couple of years as well.
Are you losing users by?
I would say yes, definitely. Unfortunately, I don't have like the stats right now where I say, okay, hey, because we're just coming from the mobile web, so we did always mobile web or mobile in general. But I'm 100% sure that people are, why should they play only your game? I mean, they're just forwarded to the App Store, not direct to the APK file, or we just had a discussion as well, to the App Store. So if something doesn't feel good to them, they say like, yeah, the screenshots are nice, but look here, there are other games and there are more categories, and why not try out this and that and this game? And then they're gone. They will forget about your brand. They will forget about where they played all the games before, because they believe probably that this destination is a game house destination. So they might think about the same.
I have a question that kind of probably for both. You have the really loud mic. For both Amy and Ron, kind of dovetailing off of Alex's comments. If you know that, and again, I come at this from a technology standpoint, not the user acquisition. As you said, you don't care about the technology, about the acquisition. I don't know much about the acquisition, but I know about the technology. If you know that your current user base of 10 million people are saying they're playing on desktop, they're an older demographic, not particularly sophisticated, all they want to do is when I pick up my iPad, type in, I want to play the same game. They don't get that there's a difference in how you present the information. I think that WebGL being enabled on mobile potentially solves a challenge for you that you may start to lose those people. Or maybe it's a question, do you run the risk of losing them, that you can't give them the same experience because they expect I should get the same experience on this tablet as I do when I'm on my desktop? And to Alex's point, if you then bring them to your mobile website and then send them to the App Store, you probably run two risks. Whereas I think WebGL being enabled, again, Apple just did this, it's still some months out. I think it creates an opportunity.
Yeah, I would. If you want to go.
Well,
You don't want to touch tech.
I don't want to touch tech. I think you're right. I think that the consistency from a quality standpoint as well as an offering is important. I'm fearful of these stats that got thrown out to begin with, because I don't know. There are 1 million apps in the App Store. 90% of them are games. How many HTML5 games are out there? We shouldn't expect anything different from the consumers. All they've had is app stores for 5 years. Games have proliferated that. There is absolutely no surprise in those numbers whatsoever until we start taking some of these steps and making strides towards a unified experience across web and mobile web. We shouldn't expect anything different, but it's got to change. I mean, we can't. The developer community. I've seen over the last year probably a dozen developers or more that have gone out of business trying to survive in the app market. Something's got to change. So, I mean, I'm not looking at this as Robin Hood kind of activity, but I certainly think that we've got to make some steps in that direction, or we're just going to continue to get our lunch handed to us. So, anyway.
No, I would say for Gamehouse, because we are focused on wanting to retain our subscribers and potentially grow them, right? As the PC market contracts and declines, there's an argument to be made that you can actually gain market share in a declining market. So we believe that we can actually potentially go get more subscribers, but in order to do that, you have to have a mobile web experience that is compelling. And so as we invest in that platform and as this content, HTML5, improves, and as partners and developers start to build richer experiences, our hope is that that platform evolves, our mobile web platform and strategy evolve to meet the customer demand, so that if we find that we're promoting one of our apps and we're taking that customer to the App Store and it doesn't make sense, right, as a marketing channel, it's low return, it's not a high value channel for us, then I would say that we potentially stop that, right? We're not beholden to promote apps on the mobile web. It's just that by default, many of the businesses, besides Gamehouse, right? There's lots of casual game sites that haven't nailed their mobile web strategy, and so you see it all over. I think you were doing the search right before when you type in games into a mobile web browser. Many of the sites that pop up will just launch a quick page that just pops you into the App Store. So this is an ever-evolving strategy and content challenge, but it's not to say that we're going to exclusively focus on driving people to the App Store. And in fact, I would say we would stop that if we end up having a mobile web experience that is compelling and allowing us to acquire and retain customers.
I know one discovery we had on our platform too, and I forget exactly what the percentage is, but we do have that mobile intercept page as part of our web experience that sends the user to the App Store, and we have a very compelling product there, the GSN Casino. It does extremely well. But the majority of our users actually opt out of that, and they go to the very bottom of the screen in little teeny tiny print where it says continue on to gsn.com. And it is because that is their expected behavior. If they wanted to go to the App Store, they would have gone to the App Store, but they went to the mobile web page because they were expecting to have an experience there. Kind of going to take a pause. We're doing well on time. Did anybody in the room have questions about discoverability or acquisition? Cooper Moo.
Well, Cooper was pointing out that we've got this natural segue from the web experience to a mobile web experience due to the nature of our service and the casual games and the 45-year-old audience wanting that experience. Does that hold true in the gambling space as well as like it does in
I can't speak directly to discoverability and how most gambling companies handle it, but what I can say, the gambling industry has fully embraced HTML5 for a fundamental reason. Real money gambling, as a general matter, is not available or permitted in the app stores. Apple permits it in the UK, but gambling companies also are not too comfortable with any sort of entry model that may have a rev share associated with it. So for entirely different reasons from video gaming, gambling has fully embraced HTML5 to avoid the app stores.
That builds a critical mass in the technology that encourage Unity to build a plugin or whatever it is going to create HTML5?
Yeah, well, I thought it was a question. For a different reason, we had to really focus on WebGL because we had a plugin, We had a Flash solution for some time. For reasons outside of our control, we had to end of life it. So if you want to use Unity on the desktop, you needed to download a plugin, which you guys all know that's a big problem. So we've really embraced WebGL and accelerated our development also because Google said Chrome will no longer allow plugins. And in fact, they announced that at the end of 13, but they gave us an extra year, but to kind of, so we used that time to come up with WebGL, so you could now play Unity content on a desktop without a plugin.
And I think Cooper touched on this a little bit, but Ron, maybe you can speak of it, especially from distribution and partnerships that Arcadium does so well. But what are you hearing in the marketplace from different affinity sites, newspapers? Are they trying to figure out the mobile web? Are they asking you guys to bring that content into the experience?
Yeah, I mean, our partners are again large media sites, Comcast, LA Times, Home Shopping Network, and so forth. These destination sites are experiencing the exact same thing that we are. I mean, their number one problem when we go in is they know that games can increase engagement and retention and repeat visits, but their biggest challenge right now is they're bleeding users from their web to mobile, and typically they don't have a very good mobile strategy. And in the newspaper arena, it's particularly challenging because it's 90% of what is being consumed mobile is tablet only, not on the phone. You don't read a lot of newspaper articles on the phone. So that's something that we're challenged with finding a solution for. The other thing that they don't have is a great way to virally connect or acquire customers. So we're trying to build out our platform in a way that has triggers and features that allow the users the constituency that they do have to go out and acquire more customers through their gaming channel, so that gaming is more strategic to them than just simply an ancillary business that has high CPMs.
But is that different than the reason they would use Arcadium? Or we used to have this business as well, the kind of the white label game solution for desktop sites. They were always using it for kind of retention and added value to those customers. Is that different for mobile web? I mean, I would say that it's almost the same. You're providing that same added value. They have an expectation that the content that you're going to deliver for mobile web is going to be similar in nature to what that customer has on desktop, right? It's the same issue that we all kind of face.
Yeah. I think yes, it is the same issue. It's what we're finding, and this isn't true across the board, but the majority of our partners have got even less experience than we do in responsive web design. So there was an example. I won't pick on who it was, Cindy, but there was an example that Cindy showed me this morning that was just on a mobile phone. It was simply the web page. I mean, you would have had to expanded that about 1,000 times in order for me to read it. But sure it was. But again, I think that's a big problem. And so what we're finding ourselves doing is not only being a game solution provider, but being kind of a consultant in the user experience, which would apply across their entire web experience, mobile and web. As we transition from a Flash house to HTML5, and in fact, we've made a decision within the last month that we are foregoing all Flash development. We won't remove titles from that current experience because they're quality and it's something that customers expect. But going forward, it'll be all HTML5 as it relates to the web and mobile web. The challenge is that we can't get the same CPMs and what's the term I'm looking for? Inventory that we do on the web. There's just not as much space to deliver that experience. So what we're doing right now is we're onboarding, and this will be my first plug. We're looking for high quality, web-based, free-to-play games that we are going to launch on our platform. I'll announce right now that Vegas World was our first. We signed the deal while we were here. We're launching them on the platform here in the next 3 to 4 weeks. But we're going to try to augment that ad-based revenue with free-to-play gaming that will be consistent across a web and mobile web experience.
I just kind of want to hit home on a fact that you just said is that Arcadium at this point is embracing that you are only going to develop your content in HTML5. You're not going to work with Flash anymore. I could see
for web.
Ngozi's eyes sparkling.
I mean, we're
Hearing this.
clarify that we are building games for iOS, Android, Facebook, but our general web solution is going to be HTML5.
That's great. Some other topics that we had all kind of talked about previous to this too is, some of the monetization and the different business models that you can execute on mobile web that, possibly you can't do in the App Store, that you have some more flexibility with subscriptions and advertising and in-game purchases, that you can kind of run the entire gambit of the experience that you have in a web version and also bring it into your mobile web experience.
I can take that. Yeah, I mean, I think the key would be subscription, right? Because that's the biggest challenge, obviously, with the app stores today with respect to games and kind of a recurring revenue. And so for Gamehouse, which does, again, have this pretty large subscriber base, the challenge that we'll need to solve is to figure out ways to use mobile web to add value to that subscription. You can see situations where if the content is there and the experience is there, you can have new subscription opportunities, right? You could have a subscription around HTML5 playables, right? Alexander's model is 100% ad supported, but that was very analogous to kind of the early days of browser games, right? And as those games expanded and as the experiences got richer, and downloadables came to bear, you're able to sell that at retail and provide a subscription service. So the same kind of evolution can happen with mobile web. The content and the experience just needs to be there. We have tried to the Arena platform, the idea of having kind of free-to-play in browser games. We've tried a couple of partnerships on gamehouse.com where we've tried to launch a couple of free-to-play games, and it was interesting. I'd say it's a pretty niche product for our customers. It was difficult to really kind of communicate in that environment that you're creating a different account, you're going to be having a different billing relationship with this third-party provider because that's new and foreign to what they've experienced when they have an account with Gamehouse. So I'd say for that is that it's not impossible to do. It's just, I think, for our customer base at least, they have established a relationship and a billing relationship with us, and so I think for us to be able to really take advantage of free to play and in-app, we've got to probably solve that user experience and particularly that billing experience.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with that model, Amy, is that we all did a great job of selling the notion that downloadable games were not in conflict with a website, when in fact that's total bullshit. If you're taking a customer off the website, you're taking them off the website. In our case, it's 100% online content, 100% consistent with the brand and the mission of the particular customer. So we're offering up free-to-play games in a true free-to-play manner where they can play those games. And at some point, there's going to be a billing relationship, but we're authenticating from the site that they originated from.
Yeah.
So CNN sends us the token that identifies that customer. We're not asking them to register on our site. When they go to the payment system, it's identified through their CNN ID.
Yeah.
So there is it's a little bit of a different animal. Similar problem. I'm not suggesting that it's going to work, but it's a similar problem, just not as many obstacles as what I think Gamehouse or Big Fish may have had.
Yeah.
Big Fish is another great example of somebody who just didn't make the play on free to play, and I think largely because it was not core to their mission otherwise.
Yeah.
I would say like soft games, when we started doing HTML5 games, we started to build like a very complex freemium payment discoverability engagement solution at this time. And we integrated into the system 10 games, free-to-play games at this time. We were integrating to different social networks all over the world. And basically what we found out after, let's say, like 1.5 years is that building freemium HTML5 games is on the one hand extremely complex. You don't find enough developers who are able to do this. And on the other hand, also from our perspective, adding this payment layer and everything around connected is so complex that even Facebook was not able to really make a very good solution on this. Because like people are Now it's so hard to make mobile payment on the device. You have to enter your mobile number. You have to enter a PIN or probably another PIN or whatever. So it's so much that people who are actually want to pay outside, probably also the US, where not credit cards are normal. It's so complicated that people don't do this because it just takes too much time and is totally frustrating for everybody. That's basically why we skipped the whole in-app payment stuff and just concentrated on in-game ads because it's just easier to scale. That's the reason why we're just focusing on ads.
Yeah, and I kind of glossed over one obvious.
We're coming up on time, so just so you guys know.
Yep, got it.
You're welcome. We are not focusing on HTML5 free to play. I should have clarified that. We hope. I saw Craig Hamilton was in here earlier. One of the few developers that I think is actually making some significant headway on the free to play HTML5. We're bringing free to play games on that are Flash with the hopes that HTML5 will kind of.
Actually, I really hope that HTML5 freemium games will have a future at some time. Yeah, definitely.
Right. I just kind of want to comment on something you guys said because I think it's interesting is that there's two sides of the coin. The billing process for new users is completely painful, and there's a huge opportunity there when you're working with the Apple stores or Google who already has it stored. But on the reverse, if you have an existing PC base and you're looking for a retention mechanism, and you have your web experience and account information that you can share into this, you have the same frictionless billing process already set up as those big stores do. So as long as you are building cross-platform and you have wide experiences, mobile web very much has a place in the mix, if not an expectation for your users too. So we're going to kind of wrap it up, open up some questions to the audience if you guys have any, and if not, we're happy to hang out here a little bit, and if anybody wants to come up and talk to any of the individual panelists, you're welcome to do so.
Maybe I'll ask a question for you.
Okay.
So I'll ask a very mean and nasty question, sort of. Be controversial. Let me say that maybe I think that if you postulate that users don't care how sausage is made, and the idea of when they play great games, all they want is a great game. They don't care whether it's written Objective-C or Flash or sort of binary, just the same as when you used Excel, whether it's written in Pascal or Fortran. Nobody really cares. All they want is a great game. So if you've chosen you want to make, as a developer, a game in HTML5, you're taking on the pain yourself rather than for any benefit to the customers, because everything you can do in HTML5 you can already do in some other particular platform. And you're taking on the pain, the tools aren't mature enough yet in sort of some ways, it's actually real sort of hard work. So is the real reason you're doing it because you want to bypass the 30% tax we're going from the app stores? Sending them to your portal, you're just doing it direct, and we just sort of cut it out. Is that the real reason you're doing it, or why you decided to move to HTML5?
From the developer perspective, it's pretty easy actually. I always say developers who are doing apps right now today, especially indie developers, it's extremely hard to get discovered in the App Store. You can have luck, see Flappy Bird and other indie results there, or you just spend $10,000s of euros or dollars every month for user acquisition. So instead of more or less competing with millions of apps, you're just competing with, we have 250 games on the platform, so let's say probably a few thousand of apps made in HTML5. So the reason for a developer to do HTML5 is because I get discovered, because you're working together with different, you're working together with a few amount of sponsors who are actively looking for content, so it's a way easier to even sell my game, to get found on the platforms. So that's, for me, the reason why I should do HTML5 game.
Yeah, and I would respond with hell no. We're not trying to avoid cost. Our motivation starts with the customer, right? It started with, this is what they want. My moms, my grandmothers, my aunts of the world do not understand for 1 minute why they can't pick up their tablet and play the same game that they were playing on Yahoo or on Arcadium. So it starts with that. Secondly, from a financial standpoint, it has nothing to do with the revenue share as much as the acquisition. So for us, as we build native apps, what we're trying to do is figure out how we deliver that experience from the web to a mobile experience and ultimately to an app, if that in fact does make sense. So it's avoiding that $4 user acquisition fee more than it is the 30% share.
One thing we actually didn't make a point of too was email, and I think a lot.
That's going to catch on.
But Ron and I had talked about this a little bit previous to the panel starting, is that, a lot of mobile web traffic not only is coming from search, but it's coming from email, and it's coming from people opening on those devices, and where are those links sending you to? And if you don't have, an active mobile web experience, you've just kind of had a drop-off point, and now you've lost the user. So it's just another opportunity, obviously, to, have less clicks, deliver on expectations, and keep your membership engaged.
Well, it's just for the camera.
The camera can see the back of my head. So I should have asked this at the beginning, but I don't really know what the options are. You got HTML5, Flash is dead, OpenGL, I don't understand what GL stands for. So what is this briefly? What's the landscape, technology-wise?
Maybe I'll take a stab at it. So I'll take a stab, and quite frankly, if one Unity developer were in this room, the mere notion that I'm speaking about technology would be laughable. They'd ask for the mic and say, "Can I laugh for the camera?" So with that as a qualifier, Flash, the big challenge, and I think Ron can even speak to this as well, is that it's no longer being supported in a rich way by Adobe. So at some point, you're going to have to kind of say, what do you do with the technology that's no longer being supported by the, for lack of a better term at the moment, the provider. WebGL and Canvas 2D are two different flavors of HTML5. And basically what that means is WebGL, simply put, WebGL is the full rich 3D experience. Canvas 2D, as a general matter, is limited to 2D. So some of the big options that you have, you could continue to develop in Flash, because the beauty of Flash, it's on 90+% of computers worldwide, so you don't have to worry about the download. But at some point, you're gonna have to kind of pay the piper and face that change.
Not supported by, it's not supported by iOS, tablets, iPad.
Right. That's the other big one. Right. Flash just doesn't rn on Apple devices.
Right.
So you have that issue. So when I think about the landscape, I think I think HTML5, and I think about the two flavors, WebGL, which has historically been desktop, but the big shift now is Apple has enabled it on mobile devices. Mozilla has for some time had WebGL available. So in Amy's world, when she talks about that rich desktop experience, when Ron talks about the 45-year-old who's playing on a desktop and then now I'm on my iPad, I want to have the same experience, WebGL has that potential. But again, when that fully matures is an entirely different question. But the Unities of the world are focused on that. Shameless plug.
Okay, time for one last question, then it's break for lunch.
So I have a question around user acquisition. Have you, in the past, tested, or do you currently test anything along the lines of retargeting your users, where you segmenting them based on the apps they're playing online and then sending them directly to the applications in the store, so you don't have to worry about them finding the application?
So you're suggesting that experience on the web, well, this is loud, the experience on the web is using that to market the in-app.
Yeah, so a user has played a certain game on the web, and then you want to give them the application so they can play offline.
Yeah.
You can drive them directly to the application.
We don't do that very actively because we're a white label provider, and so CNN, for example, would absolutely shut me down if we we tried to market an in-app experience that was outside of their control. I mean, they may get around it if we were able to tag that and then share revenue with them, but we're kind of crippled that way. I'll say that in my past life, there was a game that involved the undead, and when we tried to parlay a 6 or 7 million user base from the web to the App Store, we had predicted about 20% of our installs would come from that experience, and it was sub 1%. So we were just, and this is with one of the social phenomenons of our time, it was virtually impossible to convert that user base from the web to the App Store. I mean, you go through that experience and you think about it from that 40-year-old woman's perspective, or myself for that matter. I am a casual gamer, and I click from that website to an App Store to the landing page to a download from iTunes. I mean, you're so far detached from where they started. It's a challenge. I'm not saying it's impossible, but we certainly failed at it.
And I would just say on the game house front real quickly, it's not that we necessarily retarget customers who have played a particular title on our website. Going back to Cindy's point around email, what we would do there is we've kind of recently launched the ability to do just device detect for those email campaigns. And so if we detect that you're on a mobile tablet, we're going to send you to the App Store for those games where there's a complementary app. Otherwise, we're going to bring you to kind of our mobile web experience.
Okay, well, please join me in thanking the panel.